Welcome to 49ers Roundup, where we are going to go across the internet to round up all the biggest stories around the San Francisco 49ers. And we're going to talk about them all today, discuss all the happenings. Obviously, we got some good stuff out of Santa Clara today. We got some awards, all that good stuff. So we're going to hop into it. And of course, I'll open it up for any questions that you guys might have. So, before we get into it, smash that like button, drop an SDS in the chat, and let's talk 49ers right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, Sourdough Squad? We got the family in the building. Hopefully, you guys are doing phenomenal. Can't believe it's already Wednesday. Man, they say it's a short week and it's only one day bumped up, but man, it really impacts the flow of content. But we got a lot of content coming straight up. It's a cyclone state, right, George? Ooh, we're going to be talking about that in a little bit, all that good stuff. I want to hear if you think Purdy gets enough credit. Well, that's an interesting question. I'm down to dabble in that as we get in here to talk about it. Shout out to the SDS hopping in. Before I answer this question, I want to ask you this. Do you think Purdy gets enough credit? And I guess some of the context is from who? From where? From the national media? If we're talking national media, I could care less about what they perceive and what they care of. It is impossible for anyone sitting in a national seat, unless you're built differently, like a Brian Baldinger or those types of guys. If you're a Nick Wright, if you're a talking head, man, I don't care. I don't care. Um, to be honest, like I don't expect anyone to have the same opinion as people who are around the San Francisco 49ers as much as we are, as much as us as fans are. We're doing film breakdowns. We're watching we're not only watching the broadcast, but we're going back and we're diving into the tape, doing all that kind of stuff. So I don't expect Brock to ever get enough credit. And honestly, I think that plays to his benefit. I think Brock always being heavily doubted is actually going to continue to build the mystique, continue to build the internal motivation behind what Brock Purdy goes out there and does. He doesn't need it. I don't think like obviously no one wants to be doubted their entire career, but when you doubt a competitor, it brings something out of you. I don't know how to explain it. Obviously, if you've been a competitor before or you compete in any of you can compete competing at work, whatever. Maybe you're trying to get that promotion over someone in the same position as you, and you got to outperform. And so we compete in everything that we do if you are a competitor, and there's just something about someone talking down on you or someone not giving you the proper credit or contextualizing what you do properly that kind of sticks with you. I can speak for myself personally. I've heard a lot of stuff said about me and how perception of what I've done and built, and I know the work, I know the heartache and everything that's gone into this. And so if people want to talk bad about me and what I've done, that's fine. I just put that in my back pocket. I'm like, I'm gonna pull that receipt one day. And honestly, as a competitor, it's like a little stick to throw on the fire. It makes it the embers percolate a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? So from a Brock Purdy perspective, does he get enough credit? I think he gets enough credit from this fan base. I think from the 49ers, outside of that, I don't expect anyone to present that same level of credit because they are not in the weeds like we are. And I think in regards to a perfect example of this is when Steph Curry played for USA in the Olympics. There was this one viral video of this fan who wasn't a Golden State Warriors fan. And he's like, you know what? I get it. I understand why Golden State Warrior fans are always talking and hyping up Steph Curry. I get it. For the first time, I rooted for Steph Curry and it was a blast. I understand it. I get it now. I get why y'all are so annoying about Steph Curry. If Steph Curry was on my team, I would be that annoying about him as well. And so when you think of Steph, Steph is an undersized point guard and he's constantly been diminished for his size and what he brings to the game until he's won how many rings? How many rings did it take for Steph Curry to win before he unanimously was given the credit that he deserves? Well, you can put Brock Purdy in that same category. I'm not saying Brock Purdy is Steph, but I'm saying in regards to outside credit, that's never going to come until Brock Purdy does what Tom Brady did, because Tom Brady went through the same situation as well. It took Tom Brady winning a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Bucks before he was crowned the unanimous GOAT. So honestly, if we're talking Brock Purdy and credit, he's never going to get that from anyone outside this fan base until he's won 5 rings. If we're being honest. And even when he wins 5, he's still not Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not worried about all that. Not worried about all that. But anyways, let's talk about some of the stuff that's gone down today in 49ers land. We woke up this morning with Jake Moody winning some hardware. Jake Moody was the NFC Player of the Week, first one, special team players of the week, first one of the year. Shout out to Jake Moody nailing 6 field goals in that game against the Jets. He did a phenomenal job, and congrats to him for coming through clutch. I was talking about it on a video I made earlier, just about how Moody and heading into year 2, it just feels completely different. Year 1, I feel like as a fan base, and you guys can speak to this in the chat as well, we were just nervous. We didn't know. The unknown at kicker, I think, is one of the more interesting situations to be in, right? Because we looked at the 49ers team as a whole and we're like, yeah, this is a Super Bowl team. And then we're like, but we got a rookie kicker. And with the rookie kicker, you know, not only was he a rookie kicker, but he was drafted early. And when you look at the recent history of drafted kickers, there are more busts than success stories. And so there's just a lot of things that aren't even related to Jake Moody that are kind of brought into that. And so I think with Jake, that's what he was dealing with as a rookie. He was dealing with the pressure of the fan base who loved Robbie Gould, who was perfect in postseason, to now some rookie that we took in the 3rd round. Who is this guy? Huh? Who is this guy? All the posts. Bring back Robbie Gould. Bring back Robbie Gould. Who is this guy? All season. He withstood that storm, and I think he's better for it. And because of that, I think from a confidence perspective, it's only going to continue to get better and it's only going to continue to grow from here on out. So with Jake Moody, congratulations to him. He deserves it. I really did feel like all throughout training camp, like last year, I was talking about it. I've talked about it a couple times where I was just watching Jake Moody's kicks. I'm counting. Okay, he's at 53 yards. All right, he's 56 yards. All right, he's 42 yards. We're logging. Oh, he missed that one. He made that one. All that kind of stuff. And because that's just where we were, it was unknown. And I think we have a bit of a known factor to Moody. So I think as a fan base, people are like, all right, Moody, you're good. You're good in my book. Took a while. Took a while, but hey, shout out to him. He was a big part in that game, being able to make all his kicks, doing all that good stuff. But obviously, I would say the biggest story, I guess, right now around the San Francisco 49ers remains to be Christian McCaffrey. So it wouldn't be the San Francisco 49ers if an injury didn't turn into national news. You know, that's just what we do here. We turn standard injuries into breaking news every time something drops. So the situation happening right now with Christian McCaffrey, we already know what it is. Surprise inactive, as he tells it. Nah, it didn't feel great game day, and didn't feel like they should push it. And he had to double down on he wasn't lying on Friday when he said he could play and was going to play, and all those different types of things. And man, just all the drama that came along with that situation. But even so, like today, we had Ian Rappaport saying, "Oh, it's a long shot. It's a long shot for Christian McCaffrey to play against the Vikings this morning." And then you have Kyle Shanahan stand at the podium today and say, "Well, he's going to be a limited participation." And he was asked, "Well, if you were a doctor, would you say that's a positive sign?" He's like, "Well," or whatever. I don't even remember how it was contextualized, but basically he was saying he's perceiving Christian McCaffrey, who is practicing in a limited fashion, a positive sign. So we get it. He practiced in a limited fashion all week and he didn't play. So the thing is with Christian McCaffrey is we just have to wait and see. CMC was asked about, like, well, is the turf the reason why you might not play on uh, against the Vikings because they play on artificial turf? And I loved his answer. He's like, "Man, if you can't play on turf, you're not a football player." He's like, if you can't play on turf, you can't play on grass. I mean, you can't go back and forth from either of them. It's like you can't play ball. Man, I remember my before they changed the field at my JUCO college, it was the old school AstroTurf. Like, I'm talking about, you didn't wear cleats, you wore basketball shoes, you wore is you hit the turf, you got a literal rug burn. And we practice on grass, we practice on this AstroTurf. Like, it was a crazy scenario. So I got to play on all three surfaces. Obviously, I like grass the best. I played on the field turf that they use in these NFL stadiums the most. It's not a crazy difference. Like, I can understand how it's a little grabbier and things like that. And one of the things that I noticed about the turf, I remember the first game I ever played was on AstroTurf at Sierra College. That was not the first game I ever played. It was at Sierra College. That was Brandon Ayuk's JUCO, and it was 125 degrees on the field, and my feet were burning. But other than that, it's you can play on AstroTurf, you can play on turf, you can play on grass. I don't think that will be a determining factor in if Christian McCaffrey will play or not play, which he said. So I think it all just comes down to, is Christian McCaffrey feeling comfortable enough to go out there and play ball? That's really it. It's obviously the Achilles tendonitis with the calf. And is it good? Is it not good? And that will be the determining factor, not anything ancillary that's kind of been suggested up until this point. So with CMC, I can't say that I expect that he's going to play because I absolutely expected he was going to play against the Jets, and that did not work out well. So, for me personally, and I would probably say for you as well, it might make sense to just monitor the situation all the way up until kickoff, unless we get a definitive answer from someone within the organization that he is actually going to play. And I thought we got that from John Lynch. I thought John Lynch, he's like, yeah, he's ready to roll. He's good to go. I was like, all right, firing up CMC. Psych. But anyways, these are some of the additional practice updates. No Yetur Gross Matos today with a knee and D Winter's ankle. So those guys still aren't practicing today. So I don't know what their status is going to be. Obviously, not a good start to the week. Guys practicing in a limited participation. Talanoa Hufanga, who has a chance to play this week. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, like we just talked about. Juwan Jennings dealing with the ankle, and offensive lineman Aaron Banks. It was pretty interesting to see the hip drop tackle on Juwan Jennings not get called because obviously there's been an emphasis on that particular type of tackle this year, and it didn't get called, and it was pretty blatantly obvious, especially if you were on the field standing right in front of you. But obviously, it hurt Jawan a little bit. He's got a little bit of a dinged up ankle, so we'll have to see how that is going to happen. But yeah, an obvious hip drop tackle that didn't get called. A lot of calls didn't get called on the 49ers. I don't know. The inconsistencies of refs in the NFL is arguably one of the most consistent things, especially when it comes to the 49ers. But it is what it is. I try not to focus on the refs as being the end all be all, but it is what it is. It comes with the territory. The 49ers did add Chris Hubbard back to the practice squad today. So Chris Hubbard is back. He spent all offseason with the 49ers. I actually thought he was going to make the roster because they typically keep two swing tackles. I thought it was going to be Jalen Moore, and they were going to keep Hubbard. They ended up opting to cut him, but they bring him back to the practice squad today. They released Brandon Parker, I think, before the game. So, yeah, the 49ers get Hubbard back, which I actually do think is pretty quality depth, all things considered. But that's about the extent of the 49ers roster moves of today. This was one of the funniest things to come out of today was the payback that George Kittle threw down, or excuse me, that Brock Purdy threw down on George Kittle. Obviously, you could see Brock Purdy right here wearing the Iowa Hawkeyes mascot head, I guess. That was after Iowa beat Iowa State last season. And this season, I'm sure we all saw the video of Brock Purdy reacting to the game-winning field goal by Iowa State to put them over Iowa. And you see that you got George Kittle's response saying, "I feel attacked." And it was pretty funny to see. It's pretty funny to see their whole situation playing out. That's again what Brock Purdy had to do. I think George got off pretty clean, just having to wear Brock's old helmet. What I'm curious is to see how this continues, because okay, we got the headgear out of the way. What's next? What's the next step in this little rivalry between George Kittle and Brock Purdy? I want to see it continue to take steps forward. That's really what I'm looking forward to seeing. But it was pretty funny to see that today. Amongst all the things to come out of Santa Clara today, that video was from Cam Inman. Someone in the chat said this earlier. Let me see if I can find it. Said something about Malik Mustafa being better than Eric Armstead. I still have to get through the defensive tape today. Kind of got hijacked by some other things, so I'm going to try to break down the tape tomorrow. Maybe we'll do an early defensive film breakdown because we are going to do State of the Franchise tomorrow with the Ponte at our normal time. So I might, depending on if I get this film done, we might be able to do like at 11 o'clock defensive film breakdown. I know it's a little bit early. Or if we don't get to the in the morning, we could maybe do kind of a later night kind of film breakdown, 4, 5 around that time. But I want to do the defensive film breakdown. I definitely do. And I'm really excited to get into the tape because, again, I haven't. And just being in the stadium, the energy, the way the defense played, Fred Warner all over the field, Leonard Floyd making his presence felt. It's a breakdown that I want to do. I know I'm late to the party, but still want to do it anyways. But anyway, someone in the chat said something about Malik Collins being better than Eric Armstead. I think Malik Collins definitely early on has shown that he is a quality pass rusher. We're watching a couple reps of Hargrave and Malik Collins from my guy D-Line Vids. But those two guys up front are pretty solid together in tandem. So I have to watch more before I can say definitively he's better than Eric Armstead because Eric did bring quite a bit to the table for the 49ers when he was healthy. His problem was just being healthy. That was about it. But Eric was pretty good player for the 49ers during his time here. So but I do think Malik Collins has been a nice surprise, all things considered. So I'm excited to get into that tape, look into it a little bit more, and see just really how good he is. If you guys do have any questions, I'll open it up for like an AMA. You guys can ask me whatever the heck you want. And I'll fire away. I'm not going to do a super long show tonight. I got to go to Costco. We're Costco guys. I eat a chicken bake while I go shopping. We're Costco guys. We like double chocolate chunk cookies, whatever the heck they're called. I got to go to Costco, all right? So get your questions in, and I'm going to go get me a chicken bake. I gotta replenish the fridge. Michael says, Huff, Daddy, gonna be ready for the Vikings game. I feel like it, man. I feel like it. I feel like the time is now. I feel like, okay, the theme is not to rush guys back, and I'm fine with that. All right. I want to make that clear. I am fine with not rushing injured starters back into the lineup for the first 4 weeks of the season. We know this. Like, we've talked about this in seasons past, right? We've talked about how important it is to win these early games because it plays into seeding down the line. We've talked about it. We've harped on it. But I also think, man, you got to be healthy. You got to be right. And with Huff only having 1 week of practice, now you get him 2. I think you bring Huff in. I really hope he's going to. I don't know if he will, but it feels like a great opportunity to get Huff back into the lineup. They could always wait until the Rams game, but I would love to see who banga back out there doing his thing. I really, really would love to see it. Um, we kind of talked a little bit about the CMC. Honestly, my update is you just got to we got to monitor it all the way up until game time, unless Kyle definitively announces him cleared to play. So we just got to wait and see. Justin says, "Yo, man, have you checked out Edge Miami Tyler Barron 4 sacks in 2 games?" I haven't checked him out specifically. I've seen a couple clips that you've posted, but I did see that in one mock draft, obviously way too early mock draft, that someone had him going number 1 overall. I was like, oh damn. I was like, okay, so he's definitely a riser, for sure, for sure, for sure. Oh, who else would I add to the active roster? Jeez, I don't even know who are the available free agents. Let me see. Unsigned. This I can pull up the list. This is the list that I have right in front of me of available free agents. Steven Nelson at cornerback, no. Ryan Tannehill, no. Ooh, Fletcher Cox. Wait, is he on the Eagles right now, or is he an unsigned free agent? Or did he retire? Adoree Jackson signed. Michael Thomas is available. Donovan Smith, Cam Fleming. Micah Hyde, I would like as a practice squad guy. Yannick Ngakoue feels like he's kind of flamed out of the league. Zach Cunningham showed promise at one point. I believe Akilla Witherspoon just signed today. Romeo, interesting. Jaron Curse, nah. Marcus Golden retired, I think. Rasheem Green was a guy that I wanted for the 49ers at one point to kind of play that interior kind of position, the Charles Omenihu position, but he flamed out really quickly. There's really not a lot that I would be fiending over that I think the 49ers should add. What I would have loved to see is the 49ers somehow keep what's his name? Cody Schrader. Because now it feels like the 49ers could run into some running back depth issues. Like, again, knocking on wood, I'm not even going to say the potential, but if something were to happen, you know, you're already down Elijah Mitchell. There's not a lot right now. I mean, Isaac Guerendo's unproven. You can already kind of sense that Kyle's like, I don't know. I don't know, Isaac, because there was an opportunity for Isaac to go out there and get a play, and they decided, no, we're not going to do that. And then we're going to put Jordan Mason back in. So, yeah, not the depth concerns me a little bit. Oh, that's a good point. Breida is probably available in a pinch. Do I think Guerrero will get some play this weekend? I don't, actually. Based on how we've been campaigning for Jordan Mason to get snaps for 3 years, I don't expect Isaac Guerrero in that lineup anytime soon. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about how long it's taken to get Jordan Mason? You notice how whenever Kyle Shanahan talks about Jordan Mason's involvement, he always talks about Bobby Turner. I was like, Kyle, are you telling us? Because you've said this like 5 times now. Are you telling us that it's Bobby Turner's fault that we don't see Jordan Mason? Because aren't you kind of like, can't you say, hey, Bobby T, I think we need to play Jordan Mason. I think we need to take Christian McCaffrey out for a couple plays. Let's throw in Jordan Mason. Why not? I feel like Kyle could do that. I don't know. It's not like he's the big boss or anything, but he whenever he talks of like they ask him about like, oh, Jordan Mason finally getting carries. Oh, Jordan Mason finally getting involvement. He's like, yeah, well, Bobby T, you know, I don't know. But I love it. I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it. Shout out to the founding member, literally the founding member of the Jordan Mason Hive. None of you in this chat have a 41 Jordan Mason jersey. Not one of you. This man does. Um, Justin, head of the Sourdough Scouts, was like, dude, Jordan Mason is a dog. Right after we signed him out of Georgia Tech, I'm like, okay, you guys know me. I'm like, I watched the tape. I was like, okay, he looks good. We got out to training camp. I was like, dude, Jordan Mason is that guy. I was like, he's a dog, man. Like you could see it early on. And you had Trey Sermon out there, TDP, Jamichael Hasty. Uh, you still had Jeff Wilson out there. Uh, I remember that. And I was just like, dude, there's no way Jordan Mason can't make this roster. I got a lot of pushback on that too. I got a lot of pushback. I got pushback from some beat reporters on that. I got pushback from 2 beat reporters on Jordan Mason making the final roster, actually, now that I think about it. And I remember bringing it up both times. And I'm like, I think Jordan Mason needs to make this roster. And it was like, probably not. I was like, yeah, well, yeah, he should. He should absolutely make this roster. And he should absolutely make this roster over Trey Sermon, over TDP, who are both 3rd-round draft picks. It's like, yeah, he's that good. He needs to make this roster. And I mean, thankfully, the 49ers were smart and they kept Jordan Mason, an undrafted free agent, over a 2nd-year, 3rd-round draft pick in Trey Sermon that they traded up for just barely over a year before they let him go. Dude, I remember when that happened. That was discharge day for my son out of the NICU. And so we were literally getting loaded up into the car. My son had been in the NICU for 2.5 months. It's like one of the greatest days of my life to be able to break my son out of the NICU. And we're getting him loaded up into my car. And I get the notification 49ers release Trey Sermon because they kept like a weird number of like running backs. You know how they do that weird kind of roster massaging and they like make these shuffle moves. And then remember they kept Jordan Mason, they kept Trey Sermon, TDP, Jeff Wilson. I think we had another running back. And I was like, that was interesting that we kept that many running backs. Remember, they were trying to trade him. We had the pump and dump. You had John Lynch, I think, go somewhere and say, like, oh, he's been one of the best running backs in camp. Some quote. And we're like, oh, that's an interesting quote. And comes to find out they were trying to trade Trey Sermon. And they couldn't find any partners. And as a result of that, they just released him. But I remember that whole situation of just how we were advocating so hard for Jordan Mason that he had to make this roster. I remember what I kept saying. I was like, if we let Jordan Mason hit waivers, he is a Seattle Seahawk tomorrow. And you do not want Jordan Mason to go to Seattle and make us regret it for the next 5 to 6 years. And thankfully, the 49ers did not do that. And we are not regretting that we kept Jordan Mason. And ever since, Mason has just climbed the ladder. And we talked about it with Elijah Mitchell. You know, we all liked Jordan Mason and his production and what he offered to the table, but we knew Elijah Mitchell was in the way. And I was like, the only thing that's stopping Jordan Mason from being RB2 is a healthy Elijah Mitchell. And sure enough, Elijah Mitchell down for the year. And Jordan Mason pops into the starting lineup, shines, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But it was pretty fun, man. The Mason Hive, fantastic. Patrick Taylor going to get looks. He was dressed, but he didn't get any looks. At least that I noticed. But it'll be interesting to see if they do put all that kind of stuff. Are the Niners in trouble for comments they gave to the reporters? I don't think so. I think it was more about there was a potential for like some type of, I don't know, misreporting on the injury report, but just like Kyle and McCaffrey talked about, he was limited all throughout the week. He was questionable, and they said game day, they tested out, didn't go. There's nothing wrong with that. And again, also, I remember, so I found out about this on live, and so I had no idea what the problem was. And so I started kind of like posting and tweeting about it. Like, what is everyone tripping about? I didn't watch Jordan Mason's interview. I didn't watch the pregame interview. I watched Kyle's, but I didn't make the connection that it was a big deal. And so then I finally, like, after hearing about it from the chat after the game, it was way later. I finally went through and I watched everything, and I was like, oh, this is what everyone's freaking out about. But if you take into all that logic, what are they going to get in trouble for? A guy didn't feel good. They didn't put him out there for game day, and so they didn't play him. And what is there to get in trouble about? That happens all the time. There have been literal games where a guy rolls his ankle in the warm-up and he's out of the game. We've seen that happen before. So for a guy to test it out and be like, it doesn't feel good, they don't have to announce that right away. They don't have to say, like, come out and say, breaking news, CMC isn't going to play. They can just wait until the inactives list comes out, and that's honestly the best thing for them to do. Benefits them the most, because it keeps the other team guessing and all that other stuff. So I don't really think they're going to be in trouble, because even Jordan Mason himself, he didn't even give a definitive answer. He's like, oh, I think maybe Friday something, I don't know. Like, he didn't even give a definitive answer. So it's like, how are you going to even hold his feet to the fire? He didn't even give a definitive answer. He's basically, I don't know. I think maybe Friday they told me, I might be I don't know. Yeah, I'm not buying it. I think it's more of a fantasy football betting problem. I think that's why it really was such a big deal, for all of that. Who's my favorite 49er all time? That's a tough question. I feel like I have favorite 49ers from different eras. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to quantify. Like my current era is Trent Williams and George. They've been tied for like 2 or 3 years. It was George at first because he was a draft crush, and so I already loved him before he was a Niner. So when he became a Niner, it's just like, oh yeah, you're my guy. And then he became the best, in my opinion, the best tight end in football, and will be a Hall of Famer. So um, I like George for a lot of reasons, but I also love Trent Williams. I love Joe Staley. I love Patrick Willis. Mike Iupati is one of my favorites. Garrison Hurst, I really like. Steve Young. There's just a lot. It's a hard that's a hard one for me to just pick one. There's so many. It's like I can't even pick one from each era. Like I can't even pick one for right now. So I'm not the person to ask because I like too many of them. Uh, I unfortunately never got to watch Jordan Mason play, or excuse me, Jordan Mason. I never got to watch Jordan Mason play. I never got to watch Joe Montana play, and I really barely got to watch Steve Young play. I grew up. I grew up in an era of not the best 49er football, at least when I was old enough to like really understand football at a certain level. So yeah, I don't have like a ton of favorites. Will Mustafa play week 2? I'm pretty sure he played in that game. He might not have played a lot, but I have to go back and watch the tape. But I do think he played. I saw some photos of him in the game. Jordan Mason reminds me of Marshawn Lynch. He does have that mini Marshawn vibe, for sure. Brad, are you worried about Mason showing out and being an RFA at the end of the season? Is he a RFA or is he a restricted free agent? I'm trying to think because I know he's a UDFA. I think you might be right though. I think he is a RFA. That's a knowledge that I want to know for myself as well. Yeah, he's an RFA. So, am I worried? Not necessarily. Some team could try to snag him, but you slap a second round tender on him. If a team does offer him, they could match. But I do think a team might come after him. I think you might. So, and if you're kind of against the cap, it might be difficult to try to keep him if another team outbids you for him. So that part sucks, but you would get a second round draft pick in return for a former undrafted player, which is a phenomenal return. Regardless of losing Jordan Mason, you would get that's a that's a great return for Jordan Mason. Um, so am I worried? I'm less worried because he's an RFA. Is if he was a unrestricted free agent, I don't think he would return. Um, I think that would be the nail in the coffin for him because someone would pay him, and I don't think it would. The 49ers won't be able to justify the cost. I think it's Elijah Mitchell who is a unrestricted free agent. So Mitchell will be an interesting one because he can either go elsewhere or he could return on a team friendly deal because I'm not sure with his health status and production as of late that any team would really be paying for him just for those reasons. So You might be able to get Elijah back for a good deal, for a cost-effective deal. So we'll see. Second round pick becomes Ashton Gentry. Absolutely. Absolutely. Could absolutely be the case. I'm really excited about the draft this year. I feel like I haven't been super into the draft as of late, ever since really the Trey Lance draft, because they got rid of all our picks and we were playing late into the season. But man, I'm telling you, college football 25 has really got me back into the mode of college football. I just think it's crazy to me how much that was my favorite game. I never played Madden because I had NCAA. I never played Madden. I only played Madden when they got rid of the college football game, and I begrudgingly have played Madden for the last 10 years. Um, and getting NCAA back, college football 25 back, I'm like, oh, dude, I want to watch. I want to watch college football again. I know already way more players than I have in the past. My Cal football team just beat Auburn. I've never been so energized to be into college football right now. Um, I love it. I'm playing NCAA 25 and listening to the best 49ers content creator. I already got to cover Stanford versus TCU. Got to watch some of their cornerbacks and their secondaries who have draft grades. Um, a couple, potential draft prospects on Stanford. So I'm excited about the draft, man. I'm gonna go into the combine and that whole I'm gonna make it a priority to go to the Senior Bowl this year. I've skipped out on the Senior Bowl the last couple years because the 49ers have played late into the playoffs and it's sandwiched in between 49ers playoff games. I'm making a stand now. Even if the 49ers are playing in the playoffs, I'm going to go to the 49ers playoff game. I'm going to fly to Mobile, Alabama. I'm going to make sure I scout at the Senior Bowl, and then try to, obviously combine and all those different types of things. And one of the reasons too is because I didn't go to the Senior Bowl last year, I really didn't pay all that much attention to it until I was late in the process and I was watching old Senior Bowl clips of guys that posted stuff online. Guess who stood out to me on one of those clips? Dominic Pooney. And I was like, oh, who's this guy? Dominic Pooney and Brandon Coleman. Those were the two offensive linemen that didn't have hype, that didn't have people were talking about them. But those were two guys that stood out to me when I went back late and I started watching Senior Bowl clips. And I was like, oh, Dominic Pooney looks actually really solid. He's a left tackle and they have him playing center and he's holding up against these defensive line prospects that I have second round grades on. I'm like, oh, he's pretty good. I put a tweet out about it because I was watching these Senior Bowl clips. I was like, yeah, this guy looks really good. And here we are. I'm now making full-blown Dominic Pooney film breakdowns. And I love it because we got a steal in Dominic Pooney. Justin says, can we talk about how we were both high? Yeah, we were both high on Isaiah Likely, and he went nuclear. We've known Isaiah Likely is that kind of a guy. He just got drafted by a team that already had a tight end one. But yeah, I remember because he came out of Coastal Carolina, right? I remember that year. I think that was a Coastal Carolina beat BYU and Zach Wilson, I believe it was. Yeah, I remember Isaiah Likely very, very well. Mike, as long as Justin's got eyes on him, I can rest easy. Dude, Justin's hit rate has been phenomenal lately. Jacob Cowing, Jordan Mason, You were big on Byron Young. I know there's Dontavian Wicks. You put me on to Dontavian Wicks. He's just buried in the depth chart right now, but he's a good wide receiver. Yeah, dude. Justin's got the eye. He's got the eye for it. Absolutely. So I'm excited about getting into some scouting stuff this year. It's going to be fun. But we got a long season. I'm not ready to start. I mean, I am. I've actually already started scouting, but I'm not ready to focus on draft season just yet. But I think I'm gonna be really excited for draft season this year. So we'll continue to see. I think the big things that we're going to be looking out for tomorrow are the practice reports. What's Christian McCaffrey's status, those things. So far, the 49ers didn't have any serious injuries, so that's a good thing. And we'll take it from there. But so far, 49ers are in a pretty good spot. Michael says, Niners better start paying Justin and Brad for scouting. Hey, man, just give us the third round. That's it. Just give us the third. Justin and I will knock it out of the park. I guarantee you. Guarantee you. Give us the third round. We will find a gem. Absolutely. 100%. Just give us the third round. I mean, right? I think we could handle it. But anyways, appreciate everyone for tapping in today. I'll be back at it tomorrow. Again, we got a Ponte on for State of the Franchise. Also, like I said, I want to do a defensive film breakdown, so I got to figure out how to get those built in. I'm going to still be posting more film breakdowns to the channel. If you haven't watched my Dominic Pooney film breakdown, go check that out. I appreciate again, man, if you guys continue to show love to the film breakdowns that I post, I will post more and more film breakdowns. That's how it works. If the views go up, that's the type of content I'm going to produce. And so you get a lot of eyes on the film breakdowns, we're going to push up the film breakdown content. So that's how it works around here. You know the vibes. But I appreciate everyone as always. I'm out of here for now. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see